You ever have one of those moments where everything around you is chaos, but you find this tiny pocket of peace, so small it almost feels wrong? That's what it was like after Turovik. We'd been pushing for weeks. Cold, hungry, soaked in mud. Always just a few wrong steps from dying in some nameless trench or forest. But then we found this stone lodge, still standing, barely touched. No idea how it had survived the shelling nothing around it had. We packed inside like rats into a dry corner, shoulders pressed, boots melting snow into puddles on the floor. But it was warm, really warm. Someone got a fire going. Someone else broke out a bottle. We didn't ask where it came from. That kind of thing didn't matter. Guys were laughing, telling stories that probably weren't true, but no one cared. Someone was humming this old folk tune. A couple were singing it through cracked voices. And then there were the ones who just sat there in silence holding tin cups like they forgot how to drink. One guy, Petrov I think, kept his hand on an empty coat beside him the whole night. Didn't say why. Didn't have to. Me? I just remember how still it was. Outside the wind cut like knives, but in there it was almost soft. Like the war had paused for a second to let us breathe, and that messed with my head more than anything, because it felt good. Too good. Like the kind of moment you don't trust because it doesn't belong to you. We should have known it wouldn't last. Moments like that never do out there. There's a kind of noise that doesn't come from sound. You feel it in your chest, in the back of your neck, like pressure building behind your ears. That's what the lodge turned into after a while. Not from the fire or the packed bodies, but from the way people tried too hard to be alive in that moment. Kolya and Roland were the worst. The kind of guys who never shut up unless they were asleep, and even then they probably snored like they were giving orders. It wasn't that I hated them, I just didn't want to hear them. Not that night, not after everything. Anatole didn't say anything, just looked at me the way he always did when he was over it too. That was enough. We both stood up without a word and stepped into the cold. It hit hard, like it wanted to remind us we were still out there in it. But honestly, I preferred that. Cold doesn't lie. Cold doesn't pretend we're safe or that the singing inside means anything. I remember lighting up a cigarette, hands shaking more than I wanted them to. Anatole took one too. We didn't speak for a while, and that silence felt cleaner than anything in the last month. Just snow crunching under boots and smoke rising like ghosts in the dark. Inside, they were probably still laughing, telling old stories like they weren't just trying to bury newer ones. It's strange. You'd think a warm room full of people would feel better than the freezing dark. But not always. Sometimes the air just gets too heavy with everything unspoken, and when that happens, even the cold starts to feel like honesty. I've heard a lot of men scream. Some from bullets, some from fire, some from what shell shock does to a brain. You get used to certain sounds out there. They become expected, I guess. But this one didn't fit. It came from deep in the woods, beyond the slope where the trees started to close in. It wasn't sharp or panicked. It had this dragging quality, like something was pulling it out of someone's throat, inch by inch. Anatole and I froze where we stood. Neither of us said a word at first. We just listened. I remember thinking it could have been one of ours. Maybe a scout. Maybe someone drunk enough to wander too far. Or maybe not one of ours at all. I don't know what made us move, but we did. The cigarette dropped from my fingers, hissed in the snow. We turned back to the lodge. Inside it was like nothing had changed. Laughter, clinking metal cups, boots tapping against the floor. All of it felt distant now. I don't even remember who we spoke to. We grabbed our rifles and a few of the others. 6 in total, I think. There wasn't a plan, just instinct. Just that gnawing feeling that if we didn't check it out, we'd regret it. I sometimes wonder why we didn't wait for orders, or just pretend we hadn't heard it. Maybe we were trying to do the right thing. Maybe we were looking for something else to distract us. Or maybe, and this is the part that keeps me up sometimes, maybe something wanted us to come looking. Whatever it was, it worked. It was one of those moments that wasn't part of the mission, or whatever it was we thought we were doing. We were just cutting through this stretch near a half-collapsed barn, snow piled in strange shapes around the ruins. Anatole saw something, Maybe a glint off the door hinge, maybe just a gut feeling, and he went over, brushed snow off a wooden hatch, pulled it open slow. That's when we found them, a woman and a child, curled up in the dark like animals hiding from the hunt. The smell hit me first, damp cloth, sickness, maybe old blood. The little girl looked barely conscious, wrapped in some torn shawl. The woman locked eyes with me and didn't blink once. I don't think I've ever seen fear that sharp before. Not panic fear. Cold, settled, and prepared for the worst. She started saying something. Fast, slurred, desperate. I couldn't understand the language. Maybe Polish, maybe Ukrainian, didn't matter. We couldn't say anything that would mean anything to her. We were just more men with guns, more uniforms, more boots crunching snow. I remember thinking, to her, we might have looked exactly like the ones who'd already taken everything. There wasn't much we could do. We didn't have orders to search for civilians, and no way to get them to safety. So we left a bit of our food, bread, half a can of something, I don't even remember, and closed the hatch again like it was some kind of grave. I've thought about that cellar a lot since. If they stayed, if they got out, if she ever let her guard down, probably not. I wouldn't have. Not after whatever they'd already seen. There's a kind of quiet that doesn't comfort. It presses down on you, makes you feel like you're being watched by something too patient to blink. That's what Sokol Wood felt like. It wasn't the absence of sound that got to me. It was the presence of it, like the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting for us to step in too far. We moved in, slow. The snow hadn't been disturbed, not by animals, not by boots. That should have been a good thing, meant no patrols, no threats, but it only made the hairs on my neck stand up. I remember looking down and thinking my own footprints looked out of place, like they didn't belong in that kind of stillness. And the scream, it had stopped somewhere along the line. I hadn't even noticed it fading out. One moment it was there, the next it wasn't. No one brought it up. No one asked where it went. I think we were all pretending it hadn't happened, or hoping it hadn't. Like if we didn't say it out loud, maybe we could erase it. Someone, I think it was Chernov, suggested we split up, cover more ground. No one argued. I didn't either. And yet even in that moment, I felt it, the wrongness of it. That feeling you get before a mistake becomes real, like when your fingers slip off the edge of something sharp, but you haven't been cut yet. Anatole and I stuck together. That's the only reason I made it out, I think. Or maybe it just made it worse. I keep going back to that decision, playing it over. If we'd stayed together, if we'd turned back. But that's the thing. Out there, every decision feels like the wrong one, especially the ones you didn't question until it was too late. The blood didn't look like much at first. Just tiny specks against the snow. Small enough that I thought maybe it was nothing. Maybe a rabbit got picked off by a fox. But it kept going. Specks became streaks. Streaks became smears, and then we saw them. 2 German soldiers. At least that's what they were supposed to be. One was slumped against a tree, arms limp, legs twisted, dead but not in any way I'd seen before. His uniform was shredded, like claws had been taken to it. His face, God, it wasn't even a face anymore. Just strips of raw flesh, like someone had tried to peel him. The other one was alive. Barely, rocking a little, back pressed to the bark like he was trying to disappear into it. His mouth moved, and I swear there was sound coming out of it, but it wasn't words I recognized. Maybe it wasn't words at all. His eyes didn't focus on us. They weren't focusing on anything. Whatever had happened here had already taken him, and the smell, that's what sticks with me the most. It wasn't rot, it wasn't gunpowder or blood or anything I could name. It reminded me of hot metal and chemicals, but with something sharp underneath, something that made your stomach clench up without knowing why. Anatole raised his pistol. He didn't say a word, just aimed and fired once. The sound barely echoed. I didn't stop him. I should have, maybe. But I didn't. There wasn't anything left to save in that man's head. He was already gone, just hadn't realized it yet. Even now I think about the way he looked past us, like whatever had done this wasn't done, like it was still out there, just beyond the trees. It was right after the shot. Stillness, then not stillness. I didn't hear footsteps, not exactly. It was more like a shift, branches bending in a way they shouldn't, snow compacting under something heavier than us. No voice, no cry, just the sense of something moving with purpose, and not in a rush either. That's what got me. Whatever it wasn't scared. It stayed just outside the edges of what we could see. We spun around, rifles up, breathing in sharp clouds. Anatol fired first. I followed. I don't think we aimed. We just needed to put sound back into the silence, to feel like we were doing something, even if it was useless. Then the others arrived, crashing through the brush, shouting over each other. I tried to explain, but I couldn't find the words. Because what do you say? That the woods were watching us? That something had waited until we were alone, then let us see just enough before stepping back into the dark. We told the captain about the bodies, left out the rest. He nodded, barely looked up, filed it under combat stress. Maybe he'd heard too many stories already. Maybe he knew better than to ask. But I've never stopped thinking about it. I play that moment back more often than I'd like. The sounds, the shadows, the silence that followed. I've even caught myself listening for it when I'm alone. That same steady shift in the dark. We never found tracks. Nothing on patrol the next day. Nothing in the trees. But I swear something was there. Not a soldier, not a bear, something else. And if I'm being honest, part of me is glad we never saw it clearly. Because I don't think I'd be here if we had. I used to think having the only bedroom downstairs was kind of a win. Like, out of everyone in the house, my parents, my two little sisters, I was the one with the most space, the most privacy. My parents always framed it like a reward. You're the oldest, they said. You should have the big room. And hey, I didn't argue. It was bigger, quieter, and honestly kind of nice not being woken up by my sisters fighting over who stole whose headband or whatever. But now, I'm not so sure. The house was one of those high ranch setups, you know, where you walk in and you're immediately met with two staircases, one leading up to the main bedrooms, the other down to the lower level. My room was tucked right down there, right next to the garage, right across from the laundry room, technically still part of the house, but far enough removed that it felt like I had my own little world. That kind of thing feels cool when you're 12. You imagine it like your own private apartment. I even had my own bathroom. But it didn't take long for that independence to start feeling off. Like I'd be the only one hearing certain creaks at night. If something happened down there, who would even hear it? It's funny how you don't realize how alone you are until something makes you question it. Back then, I saw it as a privilege. Now, when I think about what came later, I wonder if they gave me that room because it was the biggest or because nobody else wanted to sleep that far from everyone else. It wasn't like in the movies, no dreams, no jolts upright, no cold sweat. I'd just wake up. Eyes open, middle of the night. Nothing specific pulling me out of sleep. No sound, no nightmare. Just this sudden awareness that I was awake when I shouldn't be. At first, I blamed the heat. It was one of those sticky summer weeks where the air barely moves and you wake up sweating through your shirt. I had this old box fan next to my bed. One of those loud ones that drowns out the world with that low hum, white noise, you know. Still, I kept waking up. Not every night, but close. There was this weird moment of confusion each time, like my brain didn't get the memo that it was the middle of the night. I'd just lie there, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what was wrong. It didn't feel like fear exactly, more like the sense that something was just slightly off, like being on a stage and knowing the curtain's about to rise, but not knowing what play you're in. And the longer I stayed awake, the more I started noticing things. The way shadows shifted across my ceiling, even though nothing in the room was moving. The sound of the fan, steady sure, but almost too steady, like it was hiding something underneath it. It wasn't panic, not yet, just this slow, gnawing unease. Like when you lose something important, and you don't even realize it's gone until hours later, but your body knows. I kept telling myself it was nothing. I mean, kids wake up at night, right? It's just a thing, but it kept happening. And every time it felt a little less like coincidence, and a little more like warning. I remember it so clearly, probably because it was the first night I actually felt it. that shift. I'd woken up again. Nothing unusual by that point. Just that now familiar, unwelcome routine of opening my eyes at some ungodly hour for no real reason. My throat was dry, so I got up to get a glass of water from the bathroom right outside my room. That's when it happened. While I was filling the glass, I heard something. Just a faint noise from behind me, from inside my room. Not a crash, not a thud, nothing dramatic. Just a subtle shift in the air, like a foot adjusting weight on a floorboard. Quiet. But there. I turned off the water immediately, heart thumping harder than it should have been. Just the fan, I told myself. Just the usual hum, but something about it didn't sit right. The fan had always been a kind of background comfort, but now it felt like it was covering something up, like it was masking a sound that didn't want to be heard. I stood in the hallway for a second, glass in hand, staring into the dim room. Everything looked normal, but my body didn't want to move. I couldn't make myself cross the threshold. Instead, I turned, walked up the stairs and laid down on the couch like I was running from something I couldn't name. I remember feeling ridiculous, thinking, what are you doing? But I couldn't go back in there. It felt like there were eyes on me, ones I couldn't see but felt anyway. And that's what got to me most, that I couldn't prove anything. I just knew something was wrong. This part, I've never really told anyone, not because I was hiding it or anything, but because even now, I'm not sure what I saw or didn't see. I'd crashed on the couch that night, couldn't bring myself to go back downstairs. I felt safer up there, with the family asleep just rooms away. But safe's a funny word. At some point, I don't know what time, I woke up again. The living room was dim, but I could see just enough through the hallway. The fridge light was on. I could hear it humming faintly, and more than that, I could hear someone inside it. You know the sound. Containers being moved, jars bumped, that crinkling of a plastic bag. My first thought was that it was Dad. Midnight snack, nothing weird, but I waited, expecting to hear the door close and footsteps coming toward the stairs. Instead, I heard steps moving in the other direction, slow, downward, into the basement, into my part of the house. I didn't move. I didn't call out. I just laid there, frozen, staring at that hallway and the light still glowing from the open fridge door. Nobody turned it off. Nobody shut it. Eventually, it just clicked off on its own. And that's what stuck with me. That absence of logic. No one in my family would just wander around like that, go back downstairs without saying anything. I kept trying to convince myself I must have drifted back to sleep, imagined it, half dreamed it. But I remember the sounds too clearly. The slow steps, the light, the silence that followed. I could have checked. I should have, but I didn't. And honestly, I don't know if I regret that or not. It started maybe 2 nights after the kitchen thing. I was back in my room, mostly because I didn't want to explain to anyone why I was sleeping on the couch like a 5-year-old. I figured I was overreacting. Maybe I just worked myself up, but then came the tapping. At first it was subtle, just this soft, irregular tick-tick-tick behind the wall where my headboard sat. Not fast, not loud, just persistent. The kind of sound you try to ignore, but it worms into your focus and won't let go. I told myself it had to be the pipes. This old house was full of those little quirks. The heating system made groans. The stairs creaked when no one was on them. But this was different, rhythmic, too controlled. I brought it up casually to my parents. They shrugged it off, said maybe it was a squirrel or something stuck in the wall. Maybe. That kind of thing does happen. But the night it changed, I still remember the exact feeling in my body. I was half asleep, somewhere between drifting off and floating just above it, when I realized the sound wasn't behind the wall anymore. It was beneath me, like directly under the mattress. The tapping, if you could still call it that, was softer now, more muffled, but it was right under my back. I didn't move, I didn't blink, I didn't even breathe hard. I just stayed frozen, hoping it would stop, hoping I was imagining it. Eventually, it did. But that was the longest night of my life, and no matter how much I tried to rationalize it, piping, old floorboards, nerves, I couldn't shake the thought that something or someone was right under me. It was one of those nights where the air conditioning made the whole house feel like it was underwater. No crickets, no wind, no fan, just that steady mechanical hum from the ceiling vent. It was almost peaceful, but not in a comforting way. More like the kind of quiet that makes your ears ring because something should be making noise and isn't. I don't even know what woke me. Maybe nothing did. Maybe I was already halfway up from sleep when I realized what I was hearing. This breathing that didn't match mine. Not slow and steady. It was rough, like something was struggling to stay quiet. Damp, even. I could hear it pause, then start up again, like someone trying to breathe through a stuffed nose. At first, I tried to pretend it was just me. Maybe the AC was distorting the sound. Maybe it was something from the vents. But my body didn't buy it. I couldn't stop listening, and the more I tried to write it off, the more obvious it became. That breathing wasn't coming from me. I looked around the room. Nothing in the closet. Door still shut. Everything looked normal. But something kept pulling my focus to the bed. I don't know what instinct kicked in, but I dropped to the floor and lifted the bed skirt, and there he was. A man, a full-grown man, just lying there under my bed, curled up like a child on top of the extra blankets I'd shoved down there months ago. He didn't move. His eyes were closed, like he was asleep. I don't remember screaming, not really. I just remember the way my arms gave out as I tried to scramble backward. The way my legs didn't know where to go. After that, it all just blurred. But that moment, that one image, it never left me. They got him out. My dad dragged him from under the bed like it was just another chore that had to be done. The police showed up, took him away without much fuss. He didn't fight. He barely even looked up. After that, everything shifted. My dad installed cameras around the house, even one pointing straight at the basement door. We cleaned out the fridge. Anything that wasn't sealed went straight into the trash. My mom couldn't stand the idea of him touching our food, breathing near it. None of it felt like overreacting. If anything, it felt late. But honestly, none of that helped. Not really. I couldn't sleep alone for weeks after that. Slept in the middle of my parents' bed like a little kid again. I hated it, but I hated my room more. The thought that someone had been there, in that space underneath me, it's something that just anchors itself to your mind. Even now, I'll sometimes glance under my bed before I sleep. Not every night, but more than I want to admit. What still messes with me is not knowing. Like, how long had he been there? Was it just that night? Or had he been hiding out for days, maybe longer? Was he there during the tapping? Was he the reason I couldn't sleep? And what was he even doing there? Just sleeping? Waiting? Watching? I think about that a lot. About how quiet he was. About how I only found him because I happened to listen closely enough. Maybe I caught him before something worse happened. Or maybe he was never going to do anything at all. But that's the part I'll never get closure on. And that is what keeps me up now. Not the memory, the questions. You know how people talk about finding the one when it comes to houses? That feeling like, yeah, this could be ours? That's exactly what Eliza and I felt the first time we stepped into that place. It was nothing flashy, just a modest little home tucked away at the edge of a quiet town. A long gravel driveway, a few big trees out back, and just enough space between the houses to feel like we had privacy without total isolation. At least, that's what we told ourselves. We were in that chaotic early phase, half-eaten takeout boxes, cardboard everywhere, falling asleep on the couch with furniture catalogs open on our laps. Most nights we came home from work completely fried, then spent the rest of the evening unpacking and trying to make this blank space feel like ours. And honestly, we were happy. Tired, but happy. We met one set of neighbors pretty quickly, an older couple right next door. They were the friendly wave and smile type, kept to themselves mostly. We appreciated that. The house on the other side though, that one was set way back. A long, narrow lot, didn't see lights on often, no movement. We figured it was a vacation home or something. At the time we liked that. Less noise, more quiet, but looking back, I don't know. That distance, the way the trees thickened at the back of the yard, the way the shadows stretched out after sundown, it started to feel less like peace and more like a blind spot. Like there were things happening just out of view. I don't know why I'm even thinking about that now. I mean, hindsight is always sharper, right? Still, something about that move felt too easy, too quiet. It had only been maybe 2 weeks since we moved in. We were still living out of boxes, still arguing over where the couch should go, and still figuring out which light switches did what. That night was a regular one. Eliza was in the kitchen messing with a new recipe, and I was half scrolling, half daydreaming at the dining table, debating whether we needed a rug or not. Nothing out of the ordinary, until it was. The air felt heavy, muggy in that way you don't notice until you stop moving. I got up, walked toward the back door just to crack it open and let some air in. That's when I saw him. At first, my brain didn't register what I was looking at. Just a shape in the patio chair. Like maybe we left something out there, or maybe it was a shadow. But no, it was a person. A man, sitting back like he had every right to be there. He wasn't looking at us, his head was down, arms hanging off the sides like he was asleep or just waiting. He wasn't moving. I remember standing there, frozen, trying to convince myself that maybe this was some delivery guy taking a weird break or someone who got the wrong house. But deep down, I knew that didn't make sense. I called Eliza over, not saying much, just hoping I was imagining it. But when she saw him, her entire body tensed. That's when it got real. We hadn't heard a gate open, no footsteps on the gravel, no rustle through the grass, nothing, just him, already there. I kept asking myself, how long had he been sitting there? And more importantly, how the hell did he get into our yard without making a sound? I don't really know what I thought would happen. I wasn't thinking straight. My heart was racing, my palms were clammy, and the only thing I could do was knock on the glass. It was this weird mix of panic and impulse, like maybe if I startled him he'd get up and leave. Like it was that simple. But he didn't startle. He turned toward me slow, like he already knew I was there. Like he'd been waiting for me to make the first move. And the look on his face, I still don't know how to explain it. It wasn't angry. It wasn't confused. It was something worse, like amusement, but twisted. Like the whole situation was funny to him. Like we were part of some joke only he understood. For a second I told myself he might just be drunk, or maybe wandered into the wrong yard. But even as I thought that, I didn't believe it. He wasn't stumbling or slurring. He was too steady, too quiet. He walked right up to the sliding door, close enough that I could see the lines in his face, the dirt under his fingernails. He just stood there, eyes flicking between me and Eliza like we were behind glass in a zoo. I didn't know what to do. Eliza had already backed into the hallway, wouldn't even look toward the door. I kept wondering, was this guy casing the place? Did he know we just moved in? Had he been watching? That's when I called the cops. I thought it would be over after that. You call the authorities, they show up. The guy runs off or gets taken in, and life resumes, right? But even as I hung up the phone, something told me that wasn't going to be the end of it. I remember thinking the worst was behind us. After the cops came and left, there was this weird temporary calm, like we'd hit the peak of something awful. And now it was tapering off. Eliza and I even managed to sit down in the living room, pretending to watch a show, anything to make things feel normal again. But that calm didn't last. Later that night, I heard a sound, something faint but deliberate. Not wind, not a raccoon or whatever I was trying to convince myself it was. Just this soft, irregular noise from the backyard. I didn't want to look, but I had to. So I crept over and gently pulled back the blinds, just enough to see through, and there he was. This time he wasn't lounging in the chair like before. He was standing right near the edge of the patio, barely lit by the spill from our inside lights. He was smoking, muttering under his breath, like he was mid-conversation with someone, or maybe with us. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone, God, the tone was casual, familiar, like he knew us. I don't know how, but he must have seen the movement of the blinds, because he looked up fast, locked eyes with me, and then he moved. Not slow like before, fast. He crossed the yard and was suddenly right at the window, slamming his hands against the glass with this crazed intensity that made my chest lock up. I stumbled back, couldn't even speak. All I could think was, why us? What did we do? We didn't know anyone here. We kept to ourselves. We were just trying to start fresh. so why did it feel like someone had already decided we were his? A few days had passed since that night at the window. We were trying to act like things were getting back to normal, but nothing really felt normal. We slept with the hallway light on. We double-checked the locks, even in broad daylight. We started avoiding the backyard altogether. But somehow, even that didn't feel like enough. Then Eliza told me. She'd seen him, not at the house this time, but outside her office building, just standing there, not moving, not speaking, just watching. And not once. She said it happened more than once, always around the same time, and always gone before anyone else could verify it. At first, I didn't know what to say. I think part of me wanted to believe it wasn't real, that maybe we were both just wired too tight jumping at shadows. But deep down I didn't believe that. Not really. I started wondering if it had always been more than just our house. Maybe it was never about the location. Maybe it was about us, or her. I don't know. The terrifying thing wasn't just that he was there. It was how invisible he made himself. To everyone else, he might as well not exist. Just a bad story from a stressed-out couple. I kept telling myself maybe it was someone else. Maybe someone who just looked like him. That seemed easier to swallow, but nothing about it felt coincidental. The timing, the silence, the way no one else ever caught a glimpse. It was like we were trapped in some space between reality and paranoia, and no one else could see what we were drowning in. What scared me the most wasn't that he was back. It was that we never knew he left. It was late. The kind of late where the house is quiet in that unnerving way, when even the creaks in the floorboards feel too loud. I was upstairs reading something I wasn't really absorbing, just trying to distract myself. Eliza had finally dozed off, which had become rare those days, and then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow ones. Deliberate, not the casual kind that come and go from a neighbor's yard. These were closer, heavy, measured, right on our porch. I froze. I didn't even breathe for a few seconds. And then I heard the sound I still can't shake from my head. The back door handle. Not rattling. Not someone testing it out randomly. It was turning steady and slow, like whoever was on the other side knew how it worked. Like they'd done it before. I moved so quietly I don't even remember making the decision. I just know I had the phone in my hand and was crouched by the kitchen counter before I even processed it. I didn't say a word, just whispered into the receiver, trying not to let my voice carry. My eyes stayed locked on the back of the house, waiting for something to move, for a shadow to break from the dark. But by the time the cops showed up again, he was gone. Like always, I kept thinking about the handle, the way it turned like he expected it to open. That wasn't someone testing luck. That was someone trying to come in, someone who didn't think he needed to force it. That's when I started asking myself things I didn't want to answer, like how long had he been watching us? Not just in the yard, but through the windows, through the curtains, through every inch of privacy we thought we had. The next morning, we did something we probably should have done way earlier. We started knocking on doors. At first, we tried to keep it light, just the new couple trying to get to know the neighborhood, throwing in a vague description of a man we'd maybe seen around. I don't know what we expected. Reassurance, maybe, or someone to laugh it off and say we were just spooked. But that's not what happened. One neighbor didn't even blink. They knew exactly who we were talking about. Gave us his name without hesitation. Garrett. Said he lived around the corner in this falling apart house that everyone avoided. They told us he had a reputation, violent, unstable, always high or drunk, always angry at someone. And apparently this wasn't the first time he'd been a problem. I remember standing there, trying to take it in while the neighbor kept talking. It was weird, like the more we found out, the less it helped. Knowing his name didn't make him less terrifying. If anything, it made it worse. He was real. He lived nearby, and everyone else already knew to be afraid of him. We gave what we had to the police, but they couldn't do much without evidence. No footage, no physical proof. Just our word and a name that made their eyes flicker the wrong kind of way. They told us to keep the doors locked and call again if anything else happened. And yeah, it's been quiet since. No footsteps, no knocking, no shadows at the window. But I still catch myself pulling back the blinds a few inches every night, just enough to check, just enough to wonder.